Hey, welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. I thought I'd read this letter to you because it's not an advice letter, but it's one in which something was observed by this man who is actually married to a Filipina. So, or if he's not married, he's actually planning on doing that. Where he said, "Hi Terence, I just watched your video on 7 ways to see if your Filipina loves you for your money or for your heart." He says, "My Filipina is a bit strange. She does not like jewelry. She is very hard to work out. I asked her to send me a picture of her standing up, as I work night shift in Aussie, and when we talk it is usually around midnight, and so she's usually in bed. Well, she thought I wanted a naked picture of her, and she used to ring me twice a day, but everything changed once that happened, and I didn't hear from her for nearly 2 weeks. And when I did, she asked me why I asked her for bad photos of her, and did not know how to react. What she'd actually thought was that I'd asked her for a photo of her in the nude. Well, that's my friend, that is a very good example, as I said in my comment to you, that's a very good example of how a simple question can go terribly wrong when it's thrown in the mix of being lost in translation. See, very often what happens with Filipinos who have the apparency of having an excellent grasp to the point of being quite fluent of English, but in actual fact they're winging it to quite an extent, and certain words are completely beyond them, and what they do is they cobble the understanding of what you have said around the words that they do understand and the words that they don't understand. Even though they can be glaring omissions, they don't get understood at all. Now, I've learned now with my wife, if I ask her a question, if I make a reference to something with a word in it which I think might be a difficult one, I ask her, "Do you understand that word? Do you know what that word means?" And usually she'll say yes. So I've learned now to say, "What does it mean?" So now I even couch things in a different way. If I'm going to use a word, I don't know, say I was going to use a word like convey, I would say, "Are you familiar with that word, convey?" And she probably first off would say yes. But then if I say, "What does it mean?" she'll say something quite different, or then she'll admit that she doesn't know. "I don't know, what does it mean?" And then I would have to explain what the word means, and then I'd be able to continue with that part of the conversation that required that word. Now, that's on something that's really quite simple, in that it would not be a word which would lead to terrible misunderstandings. But in the case of our friend there, he asked for a picture of her standing up. And because this was an unusual request, and because probably she may well, if he questioned her even further, she may well have some quite nasty experiences on this, where men within a few communications are already asking for nude pictures. Can I see a picture of you in the nude? And this happens a lot. And these men that do this they're not actually looking for a regular partner. They're not looking for someone that they can bond with or spend their life with. They're looking for, well, they're looking for nude pictures for one thing. And so the women that very often men who are sincerely looking for someone to spend their life with, and the women that they contact are already experienced in the worst possible way. So as soon as anything becomes even close to resembling something that they've already experienced, then they're likely to cut off, and quite rightly too. Well, not quite rightly that they cut off at the slightest hint of something going wrong. They should actually, if we're addressing the Filipinos right now, you should actually try to find out exactly what it means. What do you mean by standing up? And if he then goes ahead and said, well, I never see you full figure. You're always in bed, so I wondered, I'd like to see you a full figure. And if he had any inkling and any sensitivity at all, the warning bell might go off for him and him say, fully clothed, okay? And then she would have her answer. But if not, it's open to misinterpretation. And if you care about that person that you are communicating to, you need to be aware that in exactly the same way that you can misunderstand what she says, she can also misunderstand what you are saying. Also, while we're on the subject of misunderstandings, one of the things that as a Westerner, I mean, supposing if you're American, you will be quite accustomed to a certain way to have your cell phone service given to you. Now, in America, what usually happens is that there will be a program that you go on for your phone, and it will either be a limited amount of time. You get so many minutes, but it's all paid on a bill. So you get billed either for what you have used, or if you opt to go for something that is paid up front, then you'll get a certain amount which you will be able to use and then no more. Or let's say that you I don't want to make this a lesson in what you would get for your telephone service in America, but you might get, say, 500 minutes, and then after 500 minutes, at that given rate of whatever the cheap rate is, then you go on to a very high rate of 40 or 50 cents or $1.50 a minute after you've gone over your limit. So you'll be thinking in that way. Now, I remember that when I was initially texting and communicating with Beth, and I couldn't get her, and it was late at night, and I'm thinking, according to my own advice on these things, I'm thinking, well, the kind of woman that I want to be spending my life with is not out gallivanting around at 11:30 at night. And so I came very close to cutting off relations there. But that was my first real experience of finding out just how load works. Now here in the Philippines, when you go, you can be on a program which gives you a certain amount of calls or texts or something like that. You can be on that, but there's also buying load, which is up front. And what you do is you go in, and there are these little places all over, and they sell load. And what you do is you go in, you give them your phone number, and you say, I want 500 pesos worth of load, regular load or whatever the load is. And then they dial in 500 pesos, and that allows you to use, in whatever way you wish, 500 pesos. Now, one of the darndest things about having a phone in the Philippines is you can be caught without load, and it happens all the time. Now, if you get caught without, and you've run out of load, you simply won't be able to make that important call. You can make an emergency call, but you can't make an important call like one which will convince the person that you're interested in spending your life with, that you are actually out of load and out trying to find a place that's still open at 11 o'clock at night that can sell you load. So there are all tons of areas of misunderstanding that will be based not just on language but on way of life, and you have to be aware of this and allow for these possible misunderstandings, which are based on nothing more than you not knowing how things work here. Now, when I first got out here and I understood about load, I'd learned about load, so now I have the problem like everybody else of a place that sells load. And all over the place I would see these little stores, and it would have a sign on the outside that said load. And I would stop and I would say, I need, here's my phone number, I need load. Well, we don't do load. Sorry, there's a sign on the outside, it says load. Yes, no, that's just a poster that we have. Now, what it amounts to is that if the person who is running a store gets the chance to have a nice brightly coloured waterproof poster on the outside, they'll take it. On the back end of almost every tricycle that you see, you will see an advert for somebody that's running for office, and he'll have had posters made up. Gosh, they're very happy to take that, and I'll pin that on the back of my post, on the back of my tricycle, and that will keep the rain off my pillion rider passenger. See, so there's all kinds of different ways of being misunderstood and of misunderstanding. So be aware of that and be ready for the misunderstandings and for finding out what the real situation is. That's the important thing. If you care about this woman that you are communicating to, or the other way round, then you will really work harder at being understood and understanding. There's a foreigner in the Philippines. Don't forget to like, and if you can, comment, subscribe.